Hello and welcome to the results stream for round 2 and first challenge 1 of the SpaceChem 2026 tournament. This one right here is challenge 1, the element of surprise, which was the round where the rankings were public during the time that it was online, but the end date was not public. And it happened to end on last Thursday, so around 2 days ago, after being online for 2 weeks and 4.5 days or something like that. The metric for this puzzle is cycles squared plus symbols plus 0.3 times grab drops, the usual thing to discourage grab drops where they're not necessary. But this was primarily a cycles puzzle. And the inputs are a little bit larger. We can have a look at those in the editor. So each one of them has 15 carbon atoms and 5, what's S again?
S
No.
tier.
Yeah, S tier, of course. So 15 C tier and 5 S tier atoms. And you only care about the S tier atoms and you want to extract 20 of those. And you do not care about C tier, so yeah, you can extract some, but you don't need to. And there's also a second input, which is just a standard loot crate and not a premium loot crate, and that only has 1 S tier atom in it and 19 C tier atoms. So the original reason why I added that was that when we go back to the level view, for these atoms, you can't see the name, so it wasn't clear that they were loot crates, so I needed to add something to make it clear that they are loot crates. But I think it's also nice to have something else to make it more approachable for anyone to solve this with non-random inputs. Not sure that really mattered, but anyway, you have 16
The
bonders.
free-to-play audience.
Yeah.
The free-to-play audience, I mean.
Yeah, the free-to-play audience. You get 16 bonders, 8 of which are plus minus and 8 of them are minus. So you're mostly supposed to debond things, but might also want to bond something at some point. You have 4 quantum tunnels to swap out atoms and break bonds that way or transport them around the reactor, and 1 sensor for whatever you might want to need that. Maybe to tell apart if you have S tier or C tier atoms. Okay, I think that's enough description of the level, and we can look at how people solved it. In last place, we have 18111,398 with default solution copy, copy, copy. What does this solution do? Blue is rather complicated and red has a simple loop right here. And what happens is that red carries it downwards and drags both of these atoms in front of the sensor, while blue goes over these sense commands to distinguish the 4 cases of what kind of atoms there could be there, and then hitting appropriate output commands after red swaps these atoms around the reactor. And then blue waits on a sink and this repeats. And blue also goes through a flip-flop counter to determine when this is done. So this is a rather straightforward solution. It just inspects 2 atoms at a time, and special cases the 4 results it could get from that. So this solution does not abuse any knowledge about the inputs and just senses everything and determines for every atom where it has to go. Also notice, because we need 20 outputs and each of the inputs has 5 S-tier atoms in it, you need a total of 4 inputs for all of the outputs. Yeah, I think we can already run this a bit quicker.
I'm not sure if this is the fastest flip-flop circuit.
Yeah, so what even is this counter right here? I'm not sure.
It counts to 10 before inputting the next loot box.
Okay. So it is the correct counter, but it might not be optimal in terms of the speed or the length of the path until it reaches the sink again. I'm not sure about that one. Okay. So this is a baseline for how you can approach this level. And it takes 471 cycles, which was the most important part of the metric.
Yeah. This is probably what you come up with if your metric is real time to solve.
I mean, this is a little bit complicated looking at 2 atoms at a time. You could also look at one of them at a time, which might be easier. But yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the next one, which is VPUMA, testing the waters. This one also looks rather simple. And VPUMA uses the bottom input, swaps the single S-tier atom that is right here to its correct output zone, and then debonds C-tiers over there. That was the wrong button. And also swaps one more. Not sure why that happens. Okay. So just using the swapper to extract the C, and then mostly debonding and a bit of swapping again to get all of these separated in output. Yeah, Brokios is saying that time to solve optimization would probably just use the lower input and not the random ones, which is fair.
We notice some output port pressure, because most of the time that this solution runs for is taken by outputs in C-tier atoms.
Yeah. So yeah, this takes 20 inputs rather than just 4 inputs, but handles them a bit more quickly because it knows where the S-tier atom is and doesn't have to use the sensor at all. And this means it only takes 440 cycles rather than 471. Personally, I would not have expected a solution using the beta input to score better than one using the alpha input. But yeah, here we
A huge
are.
win for the free-to-play community.
Mhm. Okay, so there's not much more to say about this, I think. We have Astronelson next. Use code SpaceChem for 4 bonus elements. So using the code SpaceChem allows you to use the premium loot crates, which have extra S-tier elements in them. So yeah, we see blue is running on a tight 4-cycle loop here, and always sensing an atom and moving it up or down. while red moves the whole molecule to the left for the flip-flop counter down here to know when it's done.
This seems to me like the more correct flip-flop circuit.
Yeah.
I suspect it does not always work.
Why do you say that?
Like there are. I don't think it's timing in line between inputs.
Ah, yeah. So let's have a look at maybe putting a pause here. So blue is right here, and the next time blue is down there. So yeah, it does not line up. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it might be a problem. But it's only 4 inputs that need to be handled, and for those 4 inputs it works. So that is perfectly fine to not be synchronized between the two wallers.
Oh, Astronauton says sometimes an atom gets swapped to tunnel 4 without being sensed, but it turns out it's always a carbon. Yeah, so we use tunnel 4 right when we input the next load box. It's E2, E3.
Yeah. So that's because the bottom left atom is always a C-tier atom. So for that one, we can just send it straight to the output.
So you could definitely say this is the first solution that leverages additional knowledge about the inputs.
Yeah. And yeah, this one also uses a 9 counter rather than a 10 counter, so that maybe is more beneficial for not wasting too much time running around.
I, for one, have no idea how much counter is it.
So this right here is a 3 counter, so it goes up twice and then up once on the right.
Oh, it's 3 times 3, I see.
And this is also a 3 counter right here. And 3 times 3 is 9. So 9 times it comes, no, 8 times actually, yeah. It needs to move the molecule to the left 9 times, and once it's already over the quantum tunnels.
Yellow Bunny, you should rebrand as an educational tournament. Because as you can see, Astronauts shows some merit in knowing that 3 times 3 is 9, and you have a level that shows that it's beneficial to know that 5 plus 5 is 10.
Yeah, we also had some Bonder priority at some point where it was useful to know that 1 was a smaller number than 3 or something like that. So yeah, we are really learning mathematics here. Okay. So this takes 358 cycles and is thereby a little bit faster than our previous solution. Okay. Let's go to the next one, which is by CrazyBot27. Funny swaps. This one also uses the same 4-cycle loop per atom, but it does something a little bit more complicated for red. And I think the consequence of that is just that they are synchronized and that the blue one always gets an atom in time and never runs without having an atom to grab. So this right here is using a 4 counter to move the atom to the left 4 times. And then it goes over here and moves it to the left another 4 times with another 4 counter right here.
Yeah, it has a stable timing. What do you call that? Stable memory address.
Yeah. And then it moves it 1 more time. So 4 here, 4 there, once there. So it moves it to the left 9 times. And then it is synchronized again for the next input. So this one does not use any knowledge about the inputs, except for their shape.
Does it? Oh yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah. So it's basically the same approach, but slightly better because the blue one always has an atom to handle and never runs without an atom. And it takes 317 instead of 358 cycles. So it's another 41 cycles better.
By the way, this kind of sorting loop is quite a thing. I think I saw something like that in Solutions to Cyanide Factory, the monthly puzzle. So it's quite natural that you will come up with that, where you have a stream of atoms and you have to solve them.
Yeah. So this is probably about as far as you can push solutions without knowledge of the inputs, which have to sort every single atom, I think. So let's have a look at the solution by the Saboka, which is called And this one looks like it does have some knowledge about the inputs. And yeah, blue is running on a zigzag thing here and swapping every 3 cycles to move some atoms from the top to the bottom. And then they either have to get output there or swap back up and output right there. And the knowledge of what to do is entirely encoded in red. Actually not, yeah, I think entirely. Blue always does output psi and then output omega. Yeah. So blue is basically on the same 3-cycle loop that just moves through space. And also red takes care of outputting when there are 2 atoms down there so that blue doesn't stall. Yeah, and then it's just a matter of placing the correct symbols on red.
Is this the fastest process all of the input? I think it is.
It might be. Yeah, because you don't actually need to output any carbon. There will be some solutions that don't waste as much time outputting all the carbon and just leave some in the reactor. We'll get to those, and this might be the fastest that doesn't do that. Yeah. Also notice that the red Waldo comes back around to this place because the 4th input is equal to the 2nd input, which is caused by SpaceChem only allowing 3 random inputs. I tried putting more into the level file, but everything beyond the 3rd one just gets ignored. even if it remains in the level file. So there is a repeat input on the 4th input already.
Yeah, having to output C tier atoms introduces quite a lot of instruction pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, both of the walrus spend most of their time on top of instructions. So you need to be more clever with not using that many instructions.
So when you're tired of having to handle instruction cache pressure at your workplace, I mean, in code you write at your workplace, you can come to SpaceChem to handle more instruction pressure.
So yeah, this one is 155 cycles compared to 317. So that's basically half the time, half the number of cycles. And we can already have a look at SaaS solution. It works, shrug. This one is slightly better looking or worse, depending on if you like your reactor to be filled with symbols. What does this do?
I paid for the whole reactor.
Yeah. Yeah, any reactor that doesn't have 4 times 80 minus 2 symbols in it, so 358 is honestly wasted space. So this one uses more knowledge about, uses the knowledge about the layout in a different way. It already uses the quantum tunnels to swap out some things directly to there, and then moves around the fragments of the molecule. Still sending everything down here, debonding it, and outputting. Let's just have a look at how that looks. And that is it. So 83 cycles, that's almost cutting it in half again. And yeah. Does that by moving around bigger chunks and just picking out the S tier atoms. Using, for example, this quantum tunnel right here, or debonding it and dropping it. And there are 20 times 4, so 80 atoms that you might want to output if you actually output all of the atoms. And this one, the solution takes a total of, let's just see that again when it finishes. 83 cycles. So outputting almost 80 atoms in 83 cycles already looks pretty good. So yeah, this outputs an atom almost every cycle. Of course, you can maybe output a little bit faster than that by having an output occur in both output zones at the same time. And you might not need to output all the carbon atoms or the C tier atoms. So you can still go faster than this potentially. But for what it does, it is pretty optimized. Okay. I think we can already move on to alliterative allies, which is a team made up of Tough Thought and Brit Boy. And it's called Teamwork.
For those of you who are coming from previous rounds, it's a late team. It hadn't existed before.
Yeah, the team just formed in the last week. So what is this solution doing? First of all of the bonders are nicely on the right side and the top, except for this one, which is unused. And it actually does use a sensor right here. I'm not sure if it really needs that. Might save a symbol over using a flip-flop there or something. Yeah, let's just have a look at what it looks like when it runs. You can already see that this also pretty much outputs an atom every cycle. But now it actually stores some waste over here and doesn't output those carbons. So it leaves a little bit more waste and manages to be 5 cycles faster by doing that. Actually leaves, I think, 8 waste here and 3 more over there compared to the 3-1 from the previous. So this leaves 8 more waste, but is only 5 cycles faster. So it is slightly less efficient in outputting. Yeah, so the placement of all of these bonders somewhere on the right side definitely makes sense, with generally moving this molecule to the right side and debonding things. The places where the quantum tunnels are a little bit harder to reason about because the S-tier atoms in the input are in random places. Like I literally just randomly generated those molecules without thinking about them. There is no real logic behind anything. So you just have to try out some quantum tunnel arrangements and find out which ones are beneficial for what you're doing. And didn't mean to click that.
I think it's moderately feasible to write something like a solver for this, but I haven't looked into it so much as to write one in reality.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to do that, feel free to write a solver for this. I wouldn't really know where to start with that. Maybe you can ask Pri about that. Okay. So the next one is by Anning. This almost killed me. So yeah, this solution looks actually not that disorganized compared to other things we've seen so far. Have a look at what it does.
As you can see, it turns out that if it's not you who pays for all these loot boxes, you can input however many of them as you'd like.
Yeah, is this up here the 5th one? Or even the 6th one? I think we can count again the next time we run this. So this one takes 69 cycles. That's nice. And
we are officially getting into the territory of solution that take advantage of the fact that you can clog the reactor space.
Yeah. So if you have all of this reactor space, why not put atoms in like all the places rather than outputting them? Yeah, the first input just sits down here after having used 2 of the atoms from it. The second one actually gets fully output. Then the third one also fully getting output. Now this is the fourth one. And that up there is the fifth one. And yeah, since the first input still has 3 atoms sitting down there, 3 of the ones from input 5 have to be used. So that's 1 there, 1 there, and 1 there, I think. Yeah, this is a rather unusual SpaceChem puzzle. You don't want anything to run forever here. You don't even care about outputting. You just like outputting everything. You just want to special case everything, use all your knowledge about the inputs, and leave junk lying around in the reactor everywhere.
The natural joke would be that this is a typical competitive programming problem.
Yeah. Yeah, every time you output a carbon, you basically waste a cycle, or at least a cycle of one of the 2 aldos. So maybe half a cycle.
Well, not really. I'm not sure it's feasible to output no carbons at all.
Well,
Sorry, no CTRs.
Yeah, let's see about that. Leaving carbon in the reactor decreases your carbon footprint. Yeah, that's also one way to look at it. And it's, yeah, interesting that the bonder layout is quite different from what we've seen before. There's this big block right here to output basically just carbon, and then 2 more places where debonding happens up here. But a lot of the S-tier outputs are just handled by quantum tunnels. Maybe even all of them. Okay, not all, but almost all. On B10, not sure what you mean by B10. And you mean J2? Something gets debonded and then output there? Yeah, okay, this S-tier atom got debonded there. So not everything is using quantum tunnels. Okay, yeah. So we've seen this run through enough times, I think. Let's already go to the next solution, which is Team Absolute Zero, which consists of Rexkix, Gigigol, and Zarkail. Yeah. Need to sort out my windows again after looking at my notes. And it's called Totally New Precork Solution to Gain 1 Cycle version 3. Yeah, that looks similar to things we've seen before. The bonder and quantum tunnel layout is once again rather different. Yeah, let's just have it run at speed 1 once through, and then have a more detailed look at what it's doing. Yeah, you did miss me or us criticizing your solution, but you can have a look at that in the video of this once the stream is done. Also, we're not criticizing anyone here. We're just showing off what they have accomplished. Yeah. So this one uses these two quantum tunnels a lot. And it does also output quite a lot of carbon, but it does so quite efficiently. And then it leaves this bit of junk here and another piece of junk right here.
So the top loot crate has a nice slab of C-tier atoms at the left, so it's quite natural to leave it behind.
Yeah.
I think we've seen it several times now.
So yeah, input 1 just sits here at the bottom. There's even still this one sulfur that gets, or the S-tier atom that gets debonded, but just keeps sitting there and never reaches the output, I think.
So the third output has this 2x4 slab.
Yeah. And yeah, I always miss the last input being used because right after it gets there, the solution is just done. So let's look for that again. Already at 18 outputs. One more output is sitting there, and then it brings in the 5th input. There's still one carbon in the output zone while blue is outputting there, but that gets swapped away, and the swap also breaks off one of the S-tier atoms. And because of that, this one only takes 67 cycles, so that's another 2 cycles faster than the previous one. Okay. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the top 3 solution by Kurokure. What a mess copy. Once again, have a look at it running through once to see what the general idea is.
No. I'm afraid there is no general idea. In such a puzzle, there cannot be a general idea.
I mean, the general idea here is bonding a lot of the waste together and carrying it down as one chunk rather than individual inputs. That's a bit of a new idea. So it extracts all the S tier from here and also all the S tier from that input. And then it has all of these carbons sitting here. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 holes. So it's still all of the carbons. No carbon got output from this. Oops. Oh yeah, I think I forgot to say this team consists of IEEE, Brokios, and Davichi.
Or maybe the Davichi 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, IEEE, and Brookhaus with a no.
Yeah, I named them in the order that they approached me about forming a team. Brokios saying that's all his work. So, Brokios, you can probably tell me if this outputs any carbon at all, right? Yeah, okay, this outputs 0 carbon. That's really nice. And so the first one to actually fulfill the output quota correctly. Yeah, it's also really nice that the top input just does not have to move at all, except for like those 3 atoms that get moved to the right. Also interesting that the leftmost column is completely empty at the end.
My favorite part is how F5 gets filled.
F5, so right here.
So at some point, there is a C-tier atom occupying F4, and you have to do something about it, because it would get swapped into swapper 1, which is not the correct space for it. We'd like to use it to transport the S tier atom that's currently at swapper. That's currently at swapper 1. So what do? We notice that there is miraculously a hole 1 tile below it. So we can just grab it and drag it down 1 tile. I wonder if it was planned or if it just occurred to you naturally.
So Brokios is saying in chat, yeah, I had to wrangle that 1 carbon and that lost me a few cycles for sure. So doesn't look fully planned, but maybe something that just came up in the middle of the solve and some things had to be adjusted for that.
Oh, Brookie says, and yes, that's completely planned, so I guess it is. Haha.
Okay. 2 carbons enter the swap loop, one of them gets moved out and the other stays in, and red has to finagle it around a bunch. Okay, so maybe it was fully planned. Yeah.
No doubt about it.
So this is now 51 cycles compared to the 67 before. That is a drop of 16 cycles, which is quite a lot when you're at the cycle count, and all the previous solutions are also doing things at every cycle. But this one just forgoes outputting carbon and is a lot faster by doing that. Brokios says, I was hoping to make a solution putting the swapper on E4 instead of F4, so here instead of there.
Yeah,
It allows
when we first considered this puzzle with Yellow Bunny, I had the thought that large dreams would have an advantage here, because in this puzzle there are multiple approaches that could really be developed independently. So you could literally multi-thread with different people.
Yeah. Okay, so Brookhius also said, so was hoping to make the solution with the swapper over there that allows processing some of the inputs a little bit nicer to get faster, but I decided not to spend that much time on it. This was my first solve and it just stayed there lol. So yeah, I guess that speaks against the team multi-threading hypothesis. If you just make the first solution be the best one, you don't need any more multitasking.
I guess you could run it like modern large language models do, where you do multiple solutions and pick the top one.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to second place, which is Darius 1 with 60 carbon. This one looks rather clean again. And he actually outputs carbon. Maybe even 60 of them, who knows? Or he leaves behind 60. Apparently looks like he is leaving behind 60. So he is using 5 inputs and outputting the carbon of the first one and then just stacking the other 4 into the reactor without doing too much to the carbon.
I like how feature placements in these solutions are essentially random. Like the result of human heuristics working for a long time.
And it's also like really nice to find layouts that can handle the 4th and 5th input here. Just by moving the 4th one down and leaving the 5th one in place and not doing anything else to them, and still extract enough ST atoms out of them.
Yeah, I guess a really natural way to start is to see how you can process the first few atoms, the first few outputs efficiently, then do whatever with the rest.
So yeah, Brokius is pointing out that he didn't really look at using the 5th input at all. So that is maybe where this solution is better than the previous one at another 6 cycles faster by, yes, outputting some things, but therefore having 5 inputs to work with, where it can just pick out the ST atoms in the most convenient places and leave some behind. Okay. So anyone who's hoping for a really nice host solution will be a bit disappointed. We don't have a good solution for this one because I designed this puzzle like 2 or 3 hours before the round went live. Because the previous puzzle we had for this really sucked and I didn't even want to solve that myself. So I have...
So we had several different candidates, but we rejected all of them except for this one. I think that's how it went.
Yeah. I made one several weeks ago that I thought would be fine without playtesting it at all. And then after thinking about playtesting it a bit, I did not want to play it at all and thought others wouldn't want to play it either. And then we threw some ideas around, but nothing really worked. And this was then the result of the last hours before the round went live. And I think it turned out
Well,
reasonably
I
well.
came up with the theme of predatory pay-to-win microtransactions, etc. And Yellow Bunny made a really good implementation that you see here.
Yeah. So, in first place, we have Big Mango Head with early input 2, copy 6, or copy times 6. So we have a lot of bonders in the top left, which is a bit surprising. There's also a sensor here. Have a look at this. So this takes 41 cycles, beating the previous solution by another 4 cycles. And yeah, as you can see, it basically just magically gets out all of the S-tier atoms, leaving behind all the C-tier atoms. And yeah, the walrus don't even really have to go down here. Yeah, step 1, input everything. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, 41 cycle solution. Also really nice how these two halves of the first input just kind of slide into each other while bringing all the S-tier atoms over the quantum tunnel. And yeah, all of this gets debonded to find the S-tier atoms, and then once they are moved to the quantum tunnels, the rest just gets rebonded and moved down.
Well, I guess the defining idea is to try not to do anything with C-tier atoms other than bonding and moving down to make space for the next input, as it would be wasteful to do so.
Yeah, Big Mango Head points out that this quantum tunnel down here was initially placed there to output carbon or C-tier atoms if necessary, but it turned out that it wasn't actually necessary, but it was still really convenient to output these S-tier atoms down here. And yeah, as a consequence, there's also this carbon which ends up in the loop and is annoying to deal with. And yeah, so this is very similar in spirit to Brookios' solution.
I think early on there is carbon being output. It happens at cycle 8 or so.
Yeah, there's one output command right here with this carbon. Yeah. And that would collide with this other carbon that gets moved there. Brookios asks, wait, why couldn't you output it in red on E3? I'm not sure what that is talking about.
Well, you'd really like to press output now to get rid of the carbon at G8.
Ah, yeah, but there's this molecule of 5 carbons which would also get output and cause a stall and also a wrong output.
So you'd be... Unfortunately, at this point, you are so starved for bonders that you cannot place another bonder pair to attach it to something else so we can output.
So
And also no instruction space.
if you maybe had 2 plus bonders right here, you could make something work, but there are no more bonders. Yeah. Big Mango had just posted a wall of text. Some notes on myself. At this point, I'm actually most bottlenecked by Blue getting back up after dropping waste at the bottom of the reactor. If Blue could teleport up a cycle in the C column, I could remove the output stall on red at H4, just right here. And red is stalling there for 1 cycle.
In the interest of time, as we are also discussing a second puzzle today, I think we shouldn't read it out loud and instead post it in the description.
Okay. Yeah. I think for the top 1 solution, I would usually read a bit of text, but yeah, this is actually a lot. And we'll just put it in other places. Okay. So let's have a look at fun solutions. First one is by Team Absolute Zero. Not fun. Not fun at all. And this one is a single Waldo solution that only uses 16 symbols. It only uses the bottom input. And yeah, it is pretty straightforward what it does. Uses the swapper to bring the 1 ST atom to the top and also to move one of these carbons around, because there's no place for a debonder. So
it's amazing how the FTP community, how far the FTP community has come. Yeah, I know this little bit of roleplay is a bit silly at this point.
Okay, yeah, let's run this a bit faster. 666 cycles, that is pretty nice. Single Waldo is nice. It's somewhat symbol optimized, but not that well optimized, as we will see with the next fun solution. So let's just go on. Here we have Enigme with 12 symbols, 1 Waldo. So this one uses 2 swappers right here. And it uses the fact that the swap gets only activated once when coming from the right and twice when coming from the left, to distinguish between moving the sulfur up versus leaving the carbon right here. Other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward. It uses the sensor here to determine when the molecule has run out. And yeah, 1 carbon stays in the cycle right here for a bit, but it does not get output. Wait. Was swapped down here and then output down here, I think, or something like that. Have a look at that again. So 1 carbon stays up there. Yeah, and then it hits the swap again and it moves there. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure this is the lowest symbols possible. I had some somewhat close to 11 symbols ideas, but nothing quite worked out for me, and also other people only submitted 12 symbols. So I think 12 symbols might be as low as you can get the symbols here. This one is a little bit slower, but then we have 12 symbols by the hosts, us. It doesn't use any bond minus or bond in general and a single Waldo. So 12 symbols only using swappers. That basically uses these 3 swappers to break the bonds on the right side and the sensor to detect when there's still a molecule left. And when there's no more molecule left, it goes up there, swaps bonds, and outputs that. And then this is the only time the grab command is hit coming from the top. So it moves down here and swaps the one S tier atom to the top. And then it just goes into its loop, outputting all the carbon.
And do you really have to have it drop at J5? I assume you do, but why is this not a swap?
It could be a swap, but the swap here is still needed because it's used when it's coming down. The swap has to be down here, and if you also swap down there, you need another output in between or even more swaps, and it just doesn't really work out. I tried some things. The drop there was the best.
Okay.
Yeah, that's also why I for some time thought 11 symbols might be possible, because there are 2 swaps here and an extra drop, and I thought those could be combined into 2 symbols, but I couldn't figure anything out. Okay, so here we have alliterative allies with a symbol solve, but a little bit of a different symbol solve, because this one actually uses the top input rather than the bottom one and uses 23 symbols to handle those. So blue is...
The additional symbols mostly come from the flip-flop structure.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 symbols are just used for counting. Blue Waldo does a really simple thing to move S tier to the top and C tier back onto the quantum tunnel to get output down there. And red just moves the molecule to the left occasionally. This isn't really synchronized. It just is slow enough that it works out. So yeah, it would seem like you could move this to the left and make it faster, but then it actually runs into problems because it's not synchronized and crashes. So yeah, this space is really needed, and by making this slow, the synchronization doesn't matter. And it takes 818 cycles for that, which isn't really the point. Oh, I didn't run our solution to finish. Rather slow, taking 1740 cycles.
Well, I guess there is a point because it's a frontier solution.
Yeah. Okay, next we have another one by alliterative allies, which is no bonders, -4 cycle blue path with a surprise. So blue is doing a 4 cycle loop here, but not the 4 cycle loop we've seen before with a sensor, but just a stupid loop. And red does the smart stuff with using precognition or just knowing all the inputs. So yeah, there's some sensors used around here for bounce backs, also this flip-flop, to reuse parts of the path and maybe just waste some time also. Fit everything into the one Waldo in the whole reactor. It actually uses the bottom input. But yeah, this manages to handle 2 atoms every 4 cycles, pretty much. Which is still twice as fast as the previous 4-cycle loops, which had to handle 1 atom with each time this 4-cycle loop ran. So with 142 cycles, this is not that slow. And what was the other solution by them? 78 cycles. So yeah, it's slower than their other solution, but still pretty nice for having one wall to be really simple. Now we have SIR with particle smashing, fun crate smashing, which looks like this. This uses the legacy bug of particle smashing, which is why you see this little bug icon here. And it just extracts the 1 atom that is needed and smashes all the carbons with a new input. So this one also has a 4-cycle loop and handles 1 atom with each 4-cycle loop, but it doesn't handle any carbon at all. So it's still pretty fast. So this legacy bug is basically just when you input an atom into a position where it overlaps with another atoms and you perform an action like bonding them together in some ways, then the collision doesn't get checked and the atoms just kind of merge, the molecules merge into one molecule. And you can still have that by enabling the legacy feature in the settings of the community edition. But of course, this is not allowed in this tournament for scoring submissions. But for a fun submission, it's perfectly fine. And yeah, this ends up taking 79 cycles. And where did SIR place? 83. So this is actually 4 cycles faster than SIR's other solution. And yeah, then we also have, by the hosts, a 7-symbol solution with particle smashing. So this is the low symbols you can achieve. Okay. So this particle smashing actually overrides these double bonds with the single bond of the input molecule, which is interesting. Smashing carbon out of existence is very environmentally friendly, Zaboka says. Now we come to the distribution of fun points. I think Thor deserves a full fun point for thinking of using particle smashing for this. Then we had this one, which was not really well optimized. Anime has a nice 12-symbol solution, so this is well optimized for a different metric. Not that surprising. That's half a fun point. I agree with that. Alliterative allies. Making a symbol solution using the top input is also pretty interesting. And then having a second one that is also somewhat interesting, but yeah. I think those two together qualify you for 3/4 of a fun point. And I think only team absolute 0 is left. I mean, yeah. Rexkick says this doesn't, as a member of the team, that this doesn't deserve any fun points. And with that, it is settled. You don't get any fun points for this. I hope you still had fun regardless.
It said they did not.
You can still have fun without getting points for it. Yeah. So that was the first round that ended this week. Now we have another one. Does anyone want to take like a 5-minute break, or do we continue straight on?
I do.
Okay, then let's take a 5-minute break and then I'll just start a new recording then.